One of the most persistent problems in Baird genealogy is the repeated merging of several women named Mary into a single individual. Researchers frequently encounter references to Mary Barnard, Mary Osborne, Mary Bedient, and Mary Hall, and assume they are all the same woman. Today we're going to examine the evidence and reconstruct the family exactly as it appears in the historical record. The goal is not to prove a preconceived theory. The goal is to separate individuals, generations, and relationships so the family structure becomes clear. This is a classic genealogical problem. Researchers often encounter a common first name and begin attaching records without carefully analyzing generations, chronology, or family relationships. Over time, these assumptions get copied from tree to tree until they appear to be established facts. The result is a family structure that never actually existed. The earliest Mary in this story is Mary Barnard. She was born around 1630 in England. She married Mordecai Bedient and became the mother of his children. After Mordecai's death, she emigrated to Massachusetts with her sons. Later, she remarried twice, first to Roger Townsend, then to Captain Richard Osborne. This places her firmly in the oldest generation discussed in this presentation. Mary Barnard left England following the death of her husband, Mordecai Bedient. She traveled to Massachusetts with her sons Morgan, Thomas, and John. This migration placed the Bedient family within the early colonial communities of New England. Understanding this migration is important because it establishes Mary Barnard as the matriarch of the Bedient family in America. Captain Richard Osborne represents a completely separate family. Before marrying Mary Barnard, widow of Mordecai Bedient, he already had a daughter named Mary Osborne by his first wife, Elizabeth. This distinction is critical. Mary Osborne existed before her father, Captain Richard Osborne, ever married Mary Barnard, widow of Mordecai Bedient. Therefore, Mary Osborne cannot be the same woman as Mary Barnard. Mary Osborne belonged to the next generation. She was born approximately 18 years after Mary Barnard. She was Captain Richard Osborne's daughter. When Richard Osborne later married Mary Barnard, Mary Osborne became Mary Barnard's stepdaughter. This relationship alone demonstrates that these women were distinct individuals. Here we encounter one of the most unusual relationships in colonial genealogy. Thomas Bedient, son of Mary Barnard, married Mary Osborne, daughter of Richard Osborne. Later, Thomas's mother married Mary's father. As a result, Thomas Bedient and Mary Osborne became both husband and wife and step-siblings. Although unusual, this arrangement was legal and not unheard of in colonial America. This is where confusion often begins. Researchers sometimes encounter these overlapping relationships and incorrectly assume that the women involved must be the same person. In reality, the family structure is entirely understandable when each individual is placed in the proper generation. No identity merging is required. Now we arrive at the woman most important to Baird genealogy. Mary Bedient was the daughter of Thomas Bedient and Mary Osborne. She was the granddaughter of Mary Barnard. This makes her part of an entirely different generation. She was neither Mary Barnard nor Mary Osborne. She was their descendant. The evidence presented in Bedient and Baird family research identifies Mary Bedient as wife of John Baird of Monmouth. This marriage links the Bedient family to one of the most significant Baird lines in colonial New Jersey. Chronologically, this marriage fits perfectly. Mary Bedient belongs to the correct generation to become the wife of John Baird. Many Baird researchers have long maintained that John Baird had an earlier wife named Mary Hall. The problem is documentation. At present, surviving evidence supporting Mary Hall remains limited and incomplete. The possibility should not be dismissed. However, it should not be treated as proven fact without supporting records. This is the mistake found repeatedly in online family trees. 4 women become compressed into one. When this happens, generations disappear. Parents become children. Children become parents. Dates stop working. Relationships become impossible. The resulting tree no longer reflects historical reality. One of the easiest ways to test genealogical claims is through chronology. These women belong to 3 different generations. The dates themselves demonstrate that they cannot all be the same individual. Whenever a theory requires someone to occupy multiple generations simultaneously, the theory has failed. Good genealogy distinguishes between evidence and assumption. The evidence clearly supports 3 separate women. The Mary Hall question remains open for further investigation. Future discoveries may clarify her identity. Until then, researchers should avoid merging her into the Bedient family without documentation. One of the most important principles in genealogy is that identical names do not prove identity. Every person must be evaluated using the full body of evidence. This includes chronology, geography, family relationships, documentary records, and historical context. Names alone are never enough. Before we conclude, there is actually a fifth Mary connected to this family. Fortunately, she has generally escaped the identity confusion that surrounds the other women we've discussed. When Mary Barnard, widow of Mordecai Bedient, left England and immigrated to Massachusetts, she was coming to join her brother, John Barnard. John Barnard's wife was another Mary, known as Mary Stacy. Because Mary Stacy was part of the Barnard family network that welcomed Mary Barnard to New England, she deserves a brief mention in this story. Unlike Mary Barnard, Mary Osborne, Mary Bedient, and the possible Mary Hall, Mary Stacy has not generally been merged into the various Baird family theories. However, her existence serves as an excellent reminder of a larger genealogical reality. Colonial families often contained multiple individuals with identical first names living in the same place, at the same time, and sometimes within the same extended family. The presence of another Mary does not automatically create confusion. The confusion begins only when we stop carefully separating individuals through records, chronology, and relationships. Mary Stacy reminds us that genealogy is not about matching names, it is about identifying people. When we separate these women properly, the family structure begins to make sense. The confusion disappears, the timelines work, the relationships become understandable. Most importantly, we restore each woman to her proper place in the historical record. That is the ultimate purpose of sound genealogical research. Thank you for joining me for this examination of one of the most misunderstood families in early Baird genealogy. As we've seen throughout this presentation, many of the errors surrounding Mary Barnard, Mary Osborne, Mary Bedient, and the possible Mary Hall stem from generations of copied assumptions rather than careful analysis of chronology, relationships, and documentary evidence. If you are researching this family yourself and would like to examine the evidence in greater depth, I encourage you to consult my book, Baird, From Monmouth to Monkland. The book discusses John Baird of Monmouth, the Bedient family connections, and all of the individuals covered in this presentation. It also includes the source citations and documentation used in reconstructing these family relationships. Whether you agree with every conclusion or are conducting your own independent research, I strongly encourage working from original records and documented sources whenever possible. These kinds of case studies remind us why careful source analysis matters. In future presentations, we'll continue exploring colonial genealogy, genetic genealogy, DNA evidence, migration history, family reconstruction, historical methodology, and responsible genealogical research practices. If you enjoyed this presentation, please like, subscribe, share, and follow Ancestral Spotlight for more genealogy, genetic genealogy, and family history content. Thank you for watching.